'Twas a night before Christmas, and all through the station not a creature was stirring. They were all on vacation. The lights were all hung in the studio with care in hopes we'd have news to send out through the air. The cameras were waiting, batteries charged up and warm. The notepads stood by, pages neat and untorn, and Bill with his camera and I with my pen were just stepping out to bring the news in. But down at the State House, no one was home. The tree was all lit, but it stood all alone. The council was empty, filled only with chairs. Downtown was pretty, but no one was there. The bypass, why surely that was the place. But though there were a few cars, there was a whole lot more space. And out at the malls, the shopping was done. The presents were wrapped, the yearly battle was won. Through the alleys, the streets, the highways and byways, down at the bus stations and out at the flyways, the people were missing, nowhere to be seen. Where was the news? What could this mean? Then a light in a window gave up a clue. It had something to do with old friends and new. Mistletoe and holly, good times and good cheer, and the age-old traditions on this night of the year. So we gave up our search and we came home too. I sat down at the typewriter and wrote this poem for you. The message is old, but it's the sentiment we choose. Merry Christmas to you all from WSFA TV News.
How do you attribute this week? I must give credit to my players. They're the one who wasn't in awe for tonight, and I'm very proud of them, and I just want to say thanks for all the support we've had for this evening. And I just want to give the credit to my players. They're the one who did it.
You know, it's one thing in having your son play at another university, which was in a sense by design, because I wanted him to make sure that he had a choice to make. And when I went to San Jose, I went there late, and that has worked out fine, because Stanford's a great university and San Jose State's a great university, and he's got his responsibility there and I've got my responsibility. And I can truthfully say, however, we're going to be able to reflect on it, but the pressure did mount as he progressed through his career, and it seemed to be a little bit worse the senior year. And and as he and I both agree, we sometimes feel like it's tougher on his mother and his two sisters than it is either of us.
A crowd of 21,000, the largest since 1960, looked on at Crampton Bowl, along with millions more on nationwide TV. And in the early going, they saw some sloppy play. Second play from scrimmage, Cliff Austin of Clemson loses the handle after a 6-yard run. Oklahoma State's Gary Lewis is there to recover at the Gray 45. That set up this 37-yard field goal by Steve Schonert of Northern Iowa. Blues led it 3-0 early. Next possession, Reggie Collier of the Grays will have his pass tipped at the line of scrimmage. Byron Darby of Southern Cal makes the interception. The Southern Miss Star had a rough day. He threw 4 intercepts. That one didn't hurt, though. Schonert missed a field goal. The Grays got their first touchdown under the direction of the game's MVP, Gary Kubiak of Texas A&M. He drives some 60 yards, the score coming on this 26-yard strike to A&M teammate Johnny Hector. He was wide open. Grays led it 7-3. It was a blue turnover setting up another Gray score. California's John Tuggle catches this swing pass, then fumbles after the run. Danny Triplett of Clemson makes the recovery at the Gray 25. 7 plays later, 4th and 1, Hector gets his second TD, diving over the top. It was 14-3 Grays. That's where it stood at halftime. In the third, it was Steve Clarkson of San Jose State engineering a 41-yard scoring drive for the Blues. The TD came on a strange play. 4th and 1, Clarkson fumbles after hitting the line. Ken Lacey of Tulsa picks up the loose ball and hits Tim Stroud of Wisconsin. who runs it in for a 32-yard touchdown. That cuts the Braves' lead to 14-10. Midway through the fourth, Collier marches the Southerners 69 yards for the clincher. The TD coming on this 8-yard pass to Stanley Wilson of TCU. The PAT was missed, making the final in the 45th annual Blue-Gray All-Star Classic. Grays 20, the Blues 10. That snaps a 3-game Blue winning streak.
Both teams in this first annual event have well-balanced offenses. Maryland is led by quarterback Boomer Esiason. Esiason, who threw for over 2,300 yards this season, has a strong arm and mixes up his receivers well. The Maryland ground game is anchored by running back Willie Joyner. Joyner, number 34, rushed for over 1,000 yards. Maryland is coming off an impressive 45-14 drubbing of Virginia. Washington, on the other hand, finished off the regular season with a tough loss to cross-state rival Washington State. Despite the loss, however, the Husky offense can score points just as efficiently as Maryland. Washington gained over 2,000 yards this season, both in the air and on the ground. The Huskies are an experienced team, and it's depth that bothers Terrapin head coach Bobby Ross.
See, Washington is a very experienced football team. They have a number of redshirt seniors. Of course, they have good size throughout their football team. We think they might have in Stewart, their outside linebacker, one of the better linebackers in the country that we've seen. He's probably very similar to Quentin Lowry from the University of West Virginia, who was an All-American. Their secondary might be one of the better secondaries. We rate it very close to that of the University of Miami in terms of their secondary. So we see them as a team that's got good size, good experience, and some excellent speed in some of their skilled positions.
First quarter action, Washington in white with no score. Quarterback Tim Cowan finds Anthony Allen open in the end zone for a 27-yard touchdown, 7-0 Washington after one. But early in the second quarter, Maryland quarterback Boomer Esiason gets the pass off to Dave Daddio. Daddio goes 6 yards for the score, but the extra point attempt failed. It was 7-6. Later in the second quarter, the Huskies' Tim Cowan looks to his left, finds Anthony Allen, and Allen runs by Gil Hoffman, turning a moderate gain into a 71-yard touchdown. Washington led 14-6 at halftime. Third quarter, Boomer Esiason leading the Terps downfield, dropping back to pass here. He'll find John Tice, and after the catch, Tice does a lot on his own, breaking a tackle and heading for the end zone. Maryland went for 2 points and failed, and Washington led 14-12 after 3. In the fourth quarter, watch the great balance of John Nash. Esiason and Nash's knee never touches the ground. Nash then breaks a tackle. He stays on his feet, and John Nash picks up 11 yards down to the Washington 17-yard line. Later, the call will go to Nash again. This time he heads up the middle for a 2-yard touchdown. Maryland had its first lead of the game by the score of 18-14, and the Terrapins went for 2 points again. Esiason drops back to pass. He'll get rushed. He breaks a tackle and then throws to John Tice, complete, 20-14 Maryland. With 3:49 to go in the game, the Maryland Terrapins try to ice it, but a 33-yard field goal attempt by Jess Atkinson doesn't go. And with just 12 seconds remaining in the game, last-ditch effort. Tim Cowan once again to Anthony Allen. Beautiful catch. The Washington Huskies defeat the Maryland Terrapins 21-20 in the Aloha Bowl. This is Scott Clark reporting for NBC News.
First quarter, Washington in white. Ricky Mahorn misses. Here come the Hawks. It's Dominique Wilkins, the rookie, with the slam dunk. Now, John Lucas of the Bullets will have the ball stolen right here by George Johnson. Johnson will steal it. He throws ahead to Wes Matthews on the breakaway. Matthews with the dunk. The Hawks led 52-40 at halftime. In the third quarter, Dan Roundfield to Eddie Johnson, the three-pointer. Johnson had 27 points. Dan Roundfield also had 27. Here, the beautiful baseline drive over Jeff Rulin. For Washington, the only bright spot was Greg Ballard. He had 37 points, but Washington loses 97-91. I'm Michael Stone for NBC News.
Greg Ballard, a three-point field goal. Gregory has 34. The Atlanta lead, though, is 10.
There's a place in central Alabama, a place where time has stood still for a little while, a place where things are done the old-fashioned way, the way their grandparents used to do it, and possibly their grandparents before them.
80-year-old Otto Smith knows the ways of our forefathers, and for almost 40 years he's been preserving a little bit of history on his farm in Lowndes County. Mr. Smith makes cane syrup. And every year between the last of October till about Christmas time, you can find him before sunup till after sundown, working in a canvas and tin shack on the southern end of his farm. Making cane syrup is more than a tradition to Mr. Smith. It's a mission.
Just helping the neighbors, I imagine, as you might say, helping them out. A lot of people need it. A lot of them got children and they need the syrup. These people that I make it up for that's selling it, I don't like to make for them because they're getting a lot out of it and I ain't getting nothing out of it.
Mr. Smith isn't alone in his mission to supply his friends and neighbors with a syrup he says is full of good things. 3 generations of Smiths now share in the secrets of making syrup the old-fashioned way. Mr. Smith's son Tommy says he's been helping out ever since he can remember. And now his sons, Bobby, William, and Tater, help out at the cane mill when they get home from school. You won't find Mr. Smith's wife of 53 years prowl around the mill much. She's usually inside, tending to the evaporator and the finished product, a product that is much sought after.
People here the other day from out in Mississippi somewhere come by. They always come by every year and get syrup. And some from Texas come by and got some, and they come from everywhere.
Homemade cane syrup can't be rushed, and it takes the right touches to make it good.
If I got good cane, I make good syrup. But if the cane ain't no good, I can't hip it.
The nectar from this cane is good enough to call the bees from the hive in winter. As it makes its way from the mill, filters down through the Spanish moss that has been pulled from a nearby tree, and then finally into the syrup evaporator. It takes about 2 hours for the cane squeezins to make their way from the mill through the evaporator and finally onto the cheesecloth where the last of the skimmings are filtered out. Throughout the whole process, Mr. Smith is there, nursing the golden bubbling liquid. He learned to make the syrup from his father, and when he bought a piece of land in Lowndes County, he decided to carry on the tradition.
I planted some cane. Just when I moved down here, I'm putting up a mill right here, and I'd get the hands to plant some cane, and I'd make it up on halves, and then people got coming in here, and they just come more and more and more. And we just kept on making it. I built my mill shed a little bigger, and built me a vat where I could make a good bit of syrup.
While many things remain the same, some things do change through time. The price of the syrup still costs about the same, but the price of the containers have gone up. The first mill isn't running anymore. The mule that once pulled it has been put out to pasture. And Mr. Smith says it's about time for him to quit. Next year, he just might make a few gallons for some friends and neighbors. But while Mr. Smith thinks of less hectic winters ahead, his ways, his secrets, and a little bit of the old-fashioned way of making syrup has been reborn through Tommy, Bobby, William, and Tater. Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
This baby goat is the first of the co-ops to survive birth. The children have nicknamed him Billy the Kid.
You don't you bite me.
Billy is a lot like the fledgling Butler County Farmers Association. Hard won, a little shaky on his feet, but a promising future ahead. The co-op founders, L.S. Murphy and Harry Scott, tend to the goats and their other animals every day. The men live just a few yards apart, near Greenville. Another 32 families who belong to the co-op live 10 miles up the road in Georgiana. Scott donated about 30 acres of land to start the co-op last year. The livestock comes from a philanthropic group in Arkansas. There's a very simple reason for the co-op. Murphy, Scott, and their families need to eat. And they just weren't making it too well on their own.
In a time like this, food is the number one issue. That's something that you got to have every day.
We decided we start some kind of cooperative to try to help ourselves and other poor people. Because we once were like a lot of other poor people who don't have, you know, a lot of time we don't have a lot of food to eat.
Murphy has a wife and 10 children to support. 2 of his sons have dropped out of high school to work. The 41-year-old used to cut logs for a living. And 53-year-old Scott has a wife and 4 children at home. His health is too bad to farm by himself anymore. The 2 men have learned they can depend on each other when it counts. Their friendship is at the heart of the co-op.
Our little while we've been together, we have, with his ideas in mind, we put those ideas together, which is best. Well, we've been able to put together quite a few things.
That's the only way I think poor people make it, by getting together and sticking together, and that way they can be heard. You can't be a poor person always left out, you know. You vote and nobody hear you. But if you get together, have a group of people, then somebody hear you.
Each co-op family pays $5 a month for animal feed. Sometimes the money and the feed run out.
Well, we had to keep on trying like we're doing now. Getting together, having a little meeting, scraping the barrel, bottom of our pocket.
The trick now is to make it through the hard winter without slaughtering any of the animals they're raising for breeding. If the families can manage that, they may be able to sell some livestock for a little income and bring more people into the co-op.
We'll make it, but we don't know how, but we'll make it.
The thing look, from what we can see now, things do look pretty good in the future.
And for right now, the Murphys and the Scotts are surviving. There are canned vegetables from the co-op garden and a few gallons of milk every day from the goats. Okay. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
Despite unseasonably warm weather, Christmas came to Alabama, bringing with it most of its age-old traditions. Except, of course, snow. There were youngsters trying out new toys.
Atta baby.
Relatives trying out youngsters. Families took the day as a chance to get together for Christmas dinners and long afternoons to sit and visit.
Look at all that drinks. That's all right. You take it, you know, shoot it.
For some, it was a day for travel. For others, a day for sport. For some, it was a day for work, even if there sometimes wasn't much work to do.
It's been fairly slow, you know. I mean, everybody's, you know, in for the day, and other than that, there ain't been too many people on the highways.
I enjoyed it because I love saying Merry Christmas to everyone.
I feel pretty good about it. I'm just fortunate to have a job.
In all, a Christmas that was like so many others, joyous, colorful, and eventually over. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
At opening, we really didn't know what to expect. We had planned at one time to opening with a minimum staffing, and then we decided to load up, and so we kind of met a happy medium there. And when we opened the doors this morning at 12:30, we had 50 people waiting at the front door to get them. Christmas decorations and trees at half price, and practically all of our Christmas product is half price today, and the early shoppers were after these specials.
Number 4, please call the operator.
I'm going to turn this. There's nothing wrong with it. I just want to log them off.
Okay, you have your seat.
Well, refund hasn't been in the greatest numbers that we thought it would be, and I hope that's a good sign, but we will expect a greater more refunds tomorrow than we did today, actually.
Bessie Walker will teach her home economics class at East Clarendon High School in Turbyville, South Carolina, 1 week this year without pay. Down the hall, Betty Fleming is teaching her special education class. She'll also work a week without pay. Bessie Walker and Betty Fleming are just 2 of 100 teachers and administrators in the local school district. All 100 decided to take a week's cut in pay this year to help make up for a $65,000 cutback in state funds. The group decided to give up part of their salary to prevent a cut in programs or the layoff of fellow workers. Bessie Walker thinks she made the right decision.
Students need their education. I'd rather work with less money and not make it detrimental to the students and the community.
Betty Fleming agrees, but the loss of pay will be even harder for her.
I have to pay for the nursery that week while I'm working free, but, you know, those are things that you have to deal with.
District Superintendent Billy Floyd says the district had no choice but asking teachers for help to help meet the budget cut.
We are a district that has a low tax base. We have been operating within our budget over the last several years, but as far as extra money or reserve funds or whatever, no, we do not have the extra money to absorb this.
Teachers and administrators will probably work their week without pay sometime this spring. They'll be sacrificing about $400 each to make up for the budget cut.
17 Maxwell Drive in Montgomery. The firebombing occurred. And then the damage was so extensive in the couple of areas right adjacent to the point of origin until it was difficult to determine what was there.
Got here, it was coming through the roof.
Authorities say the 5 white males, 2 adults and 3 juveniles, live in the area where the Molotov cocktail was thrown. Clarence McCain's home at 17 Maxwell Drive in West Montgomery sustained minor damage. He and his wife were at home when their house was firebombed around midnight Thursday. They were not injured. Today, authorities wouldn't speculate if the firebombing was racially motivated. 2 18-year-olds, Tim Riles and Mark Piles, are in the county jail charged with first-degree arson. 2 juveniles have been released in their parents' custody, and a 3rd is in juvenile custody. The teenagers allegedly used a simple but deadly explosive device.
They're not the most sophisticated devices we've seen, but nonetheless, they're very lethal.
Authorities say more charges are pending, probably in connection with the firebombing at another black couple's home on Lorraine Street in the same neighborhood. Fire officials are going to take the firebombing cases to the grand jury in January. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
Whether or not those people out there carry insurance on it.
Mr. Young's comment, apparently about Montgomery Mayor Emery Falmer, is in the December 25th issue of The Nation magazine. In an article written by Mr. Young entitled, "The People Hurt Most, Vote Most," he refers to both Mr. Falmer and Governor-elect George Wallace. The paragraph in which he makes the reference reads, quote, "Even the re-election of George Wallace as governor of Alabama was the result of significant black support. Not that there was all that much enthusiasm, of course, but in the final analysis, few blacks had difficulty choosing between a racist who says he has changed his ways and a gun-toting racist on the rise."
Well, for Andy Young of Atlanta to call me a racist is like being called ugly by a hog. I think it's hilarious that a guy whose every thought, utterance, and action is based on some racial overtone make a comment like that.
An aide to Governor-elect George Wallace, Elvin Stanton, says there will be no comment from Mr. Wallace on the article.
But basically, if Andy Young would ever say anything nice about me, I'd know I was doing something wrong, so I'm delighted that he finds fault with me.
Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News. Mr. Young's comment, apparently about Montgomery Mayor Emery Falmer, is in the December 25th issue of The Nation magazine. In an article written by Mr. Young entitled, "The People Hurt Most, Vote Most," he refers to both Mr. Falmer and Governor-elect George Wallace. The paragraph in which he makes the reference reads, quote, "Even the re-election of George Wallace as governor of Alabama was the result of significant black support. Not that there was all that much enthusiasm, of course, but in the final analysis, few blacks had difficulty choosing between a racist who says he has changed his ways and a gun-toting racist on the rise."
Well, for Andy Young of Atlanta to call me a racist is like being called ugly by a hog. I think it's hilarious that a guy whose every thought, utterance, and action is based on some racial overtone make a comment like that.
An aide to Governor-elect George Wallace, Elvin Stanton, says there will be no comment from Mr. Wallace on the article. Mr. Falmer says he's aware some black leaders consider him a racist.
Well, I don't know that all the leaders feel that way. Certain ones do, and they apparently have a lot of influence, but got a lot of black friends that don't feel that way, and I prefer their friendship and their association to that of Mr. Young, so let him tend to Atlanta, and I'll do my best to try to tend to Montgomery.
Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
The hospital was built in 1949 and served blacks and whites. It became the central treatment center for blacks because many area hospitals refused to treat them. It was staffed by mostly white doctors and prospectors. Problems here began when civil rights marchers were allowed to camp on the hospital grounds during the Selma to Montgomery March in 1965. Soon after that, most of the white medical staff left the hospitals. Sylvester Reeder, Fairview administrator.
This institution took a stand. This institution corroborated and took care of the marchers from Selma to Montgomery, took care of the Freedom Riders from coming from the north to the south, took care of Viola Leoso, delivered the children of Martin Luther King when there were no other hospitals that he could go to. And I think because of that, we're in the predicament that we are. Everyone has to make some sacrifices, and this institution has.
The retreat of white physicians also meant fewer white patients. Another blow to the institution's financial stability and its image is the current exodus of black patrons who now go to what used to be predominantly white hospitals, deserting Fairview, the institution which supported the civil rights march. Officials at Fairview say another reason patients shy away is that the building hasn't had a major renovation since it was built in 1949.
I think that 5 years from now, or maybe even 3 years from now, individuals will say, well, gosh, Fairview's made an unbelievably, a remarkable change in its physical features. Though we'll be doing the same kind of health care, providing the same excellence in health care, we will be able to change our image in terms of our aesthetics.
Administrator Reeder says Fairview can and should be the hub of medical treatment and disease prevention in the West Side neighborhood, and plans are being made to accomplish that.
To provide the health care needs, the health care screenings, and the health care providing for this community. And in many instances, we're going to have to do that free. And we need foundations to effectuate that.
Are you applying to foundations like the Ford Foundation and other foundations for this kinds of funds?
We certainly are. We certainly are. And that's a part of our plan of raising $2.5 million. And we hope to do that within this fiscal year. We feel that the Montgomery community will support that significantly. We feel that the state community will support that significantly, and even more so the national community, because Fairview Medical Center is a national institution. Its history, its lineage, its heritage has been national.
Efforts are now underway to attract both public and private funding to renovate Fairview and to establish a foundation that would protect the hospital during times like these and help it keep pace with equipment advances in the medical field. Administrator Reeder and the board of directors here at Fairview believe the institution will be able to recover from its almost mortal wound received after the civil rights fight. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
News concerning the weather is making almost as big a stir as the Liberty Bowl game itself here in Memphis. For the past week, heavy rains have plagued this area. But despite all the bad weather, the preparation goes on. And for the second straight day, Alabama was forced inside to practice here at the Memphis State University Athletic Complex. Bad weather at the Liberty Bowl isn't a new experience for Coach Bear Bryant. His first bowl team in Alabama played in the inaugural Liberty Bowl in a snowstorm in Philadelphia. And who can forget the '76 Liberty Bowl game in Memphis with wind chill factors of close to 20 below? Coach, what is it with bad weather in the Liberty Bowl? Seems like every time you come to the Liberty Bowl, you got bad weather.
Well, I think maybe the percentage has been in favor of bad weather since we had the Liberty Bowl. Of course, Memphis, Tennessee, on the Mississippi River, you're going to have some bad weather. I just hope it's not bad for the fans. Wednesday night, I don't think we accomplished much. I don't think we accomplished much as we could in practice, but I don't think it helped us a whole lot. But I hate to have one of those 0 days out there for the fans on Wednesday night. I hope it's nice then.
The weatherman is offering some hope. The threat of rain looks to be ending as midweek approaches, which is good news, of course, for Wednesday night's game. Reporting from Memphis at the Liberty Bowl, Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports. As the Liberty Bowl draws near, the impact of this being Coach Bear Bryant's final game is hitting home with everyone connected with Alabama football. After practice this morning, I talked with several Montgomery area players about their feelings when playing in Coach Bryant's last game.
It's something that, you know, you'll be able to remember the rest of your life. And, you know, we got to go out and win this one for Coach Bryan and for all the other coaches that are leaving too, because it's the end of a lot of people's careers.
We're going to go out and try to win this game with Coach Bryan because this is his last game along with the seniors on the team, and we want to let him go out a winner. That's the only thing we're going to do for him.
So it's going to be a game for me that's going to mean a lot to me. It means a lot to all the fellas around here that we hope that we can give Coach Bryan his one last victory as a coach, and we think he dearly deserves.
You know, it's not my final game too as a senior, and Coach Bryan is claiming himself as a fifth-year senior now, and he's going out with us, and it hadn't really dawned on me yet. I hope it won't until after the game's over and we won.
Of course, most of the attention at this Liberty Bowl game surrounds Coach Bryant's retirement, but don't forget Alabama's playing a pretty good football team, the Illinois Fighting Illini. We'll take a look at them tomorrow night. Reporting from Memphis at the Liberty Bowl, Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports.
Walter Payton has been with the Bears since 1975. And win, lose, or draw, there are only a handful of athletes who can electrify the crowds around the league like Payton. Although in this year of the strike, his rushing yardage is the lowest since his rookie year, Sweetness really wanted this one.
Oh, it's a dream that everyone has to do the best that you can and be the best that you can. And I want to be the best father that I can to my son. I didn't have the fortune of spending Christmas with him, nor being with him on his birthday, and to reach 10,000 yards and to get that ball, which I went over the 10,000-yard mark with, and to present it to him, though I wasn't with him on his birthday, for his birthday, when he's old enough to understand and realize what it means to me and what he means to me.
Today at the Bears press conference, Coach Mike Ditka summed up what makes Payton the best of the best.
Great athletes, in no matter what sport they're in, are usually, I guess they're a breed apart of the other guy. There's something that makes a great athlete great, and I'm not sure that it's physical talent. I think it's from what comes within. It's how much a man drives himself. In Walter's case, he's probably the best conditioned athlete on our football team, and maybe in the top 10 in the league, probably he is.
Only the great Jim Brown, O.J. Simpson, and Franco Harris are now ahead of Payton. But for the incomparable Mr. Payton, it's just another obstacle on his way to pro football's Hall of Fame.
Seems that the downtrend, which has existed since July and August, is now still with us. We saw the Federal Reserve lower the discount rate, which is the rates available to banks when they have to borrow from the Fed or choose to borrow from the Fed. Lowered 0.5% yesterday from 8.5% to 8%. And this will probably portend a further decrease in the prime rate and the other money market rates, which are closely tied to the prime rate. So yes, to answer your question, I think the downward trend is still in effect. How long it will last is anybody's guess, but certainly there's no upward pressure being exerted right now on the interest rate structure in this country.
That they were in fact connected and additional charges were filed. The evidence we recovered at both scenes that was similar, and taking in consideration the time span between the two crimes and the connection with the similar type evidence, we felt sure that they were connected, and they were.
Winning the U.S. Air Force Chief of Staff's CAP Cadet Sweepstakes Trophy is probably on the minds of these young cadets, but not now. This is inspection, and everything must be perfect from head to toe.
We work for this all year so far, and you get real nervous from the guys in front of you, and it's just intimidating. You're thinking that they're going to find every little defect in you, and it's very nervous.
The A teams represent CAP regions throughout the United States. They're the best in their region, but after today's competition, there will only be one winner, and being number one won't be easy. Alabama's Gadsden team is representing the Southeast region. You might think they would have the home court advantage, but not so, says Southeast Region team captain Eric Nielsen.
The remainder of team is scattered from Tuscaloosa, Montgomery, from Mobile, and also from Enterprise, so we have a variety of cadets, so we really do not have the home court advantage.
After inspection comes the innovative drilling competition, where creativeness is one of the keys to receiving good marks. It's rumored that the team to beat is from the Northeast region, the Bronx Cadets. The A teams must perform standard drilling competition and compete in physical fitness tests, plus oral and written examinations in aerospace subjects. The winner will be announced at the CAP banquet tomorrow night. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
If they are against black people, we're going to be against them.
Couldn't you, by blocking these bills, though, couldn't you hurt that 65% of their population that is black?
No, not how you going to hurt them?
Well, if you hurt labor, won't you hurt the people involved in labor?
No, how you going to hurt them when the labor unions now, the AFL-CIO, is only basically benefiting the whites when 65% of the dues paid into the labor union come from black people?
This is a South Central Bell service center. So new they don't even have the signs up yet. But this is where you'll have to come if you want to buy or lease a phone from South Central Bell in 1983. It's all part of a 1980 order from the Federal Communications Commission to partially deregulate the sale of telephone equipment, an order separating the supplier of the line from the supplier of the phone.
After January the 1st, customers can still get telephone equipment from South Central Bell, but only as long as our inventory holds out. We'll be working through our inventory. We won't be adding to our inventory after the end of this week. Now, the phones that have already been installed, customers are already leasing from us, we'll continue to lease those to customers and maintain them.
Bell phone centers will be operated by American Bell, like South Central Bell, a subsidiary of AT&T. This is the only other place you'll be able to buy Bell phones, but it won't be the only other place you'll be able to buy phones, period. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
We're not going to, it would be asinine, and it would be stupid, and it would be insulting to black people for them to expect us to support them when there is not one black in the state of Alabama holding any staff position or executive position with the Alabama Labor Council. We're not going to do that with the labor unions or anyone else. And we intend to block every bill they submit to that state legislature, and they don't have the votes to pass the bills without our support.
While much of the limelight of this year's Liberty Bowl centers around the retirement of Alabama coach Bear Bryant, it's almost forgotten that the Crimson Tide is playing a very formidable opponent tomorrow night, the Fighting Illini of Illinois. Coach Mike White, in his third year in Champaign, led the Illini to a 7-4 record in their first bowl game in 19 years. White says the excitement of this new experience will hopefully help his team make Bear Bryant's going-away party one to remember for Illinois.
Obviously, the game centers around him, which it should, and he deserves that. And our players, instead of just slipping into a bowl game and you know, maybe having a nice time, and you know, one of those games where it's here today and, you know, almost forgotten. I think that the significance of the game and everything that's surrounded it is put our players in a position where I see them working hard, and I see them it being an important thing to them. So again, like I say, I think it puts Alabama in a good position, because obviously we're going to take their best shot. You know, Alabama's got a lot to prove, and I'm sure a lot to live up to, and it's an important game to them. But I think the national attention and the fact that our players see an opportunity is going to help our program.
If Alabama's to upend Illinois tomorrow night, it must contain one of the nation's top quarterbacks, Champagne Tony Eason. We'll have more on him tonight at 10 o'clock. Reporting from Memphis at the Liberty Bowl, Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports. The hopes of an Illinois victory over Alabama in tomorrow night's Liberty Bowl game ride on the arm of that man, Champagne Tony Eason. And talented he is. The senior ranks with the best quarterbacks in the nation. Eason's the holder of 9 NCAA passing records. The most impressive is the fact that he's thrown for 200 or more yards in every single game this season. In addition, he's completed passes to at least 7 receivers in every game at an impressive completion rate of 61%. Add this to the fact that Alabama's been vulnerable to the pass this year, and you have an anxious Tony Eason.
Well, you know, I'm pretty much licking my chops being in this offense and facing any kind of defense. I think, you know, all year long we've played some fairly good defenses, and we've been fairly successful at them. Alabama, I've been very impressed with their type of defense. They're big physical guys, and they react to the ball real well. Their defensive backs have very good pass coverages. I haven't seen a lot of games where maybe they were beat by the pass a couple times, but I mean, every game we go into, we feel pretty comfortable about our pass game. So, I mean, I don't lick my chops anymore for this game than any other one.
Tomorrow night at 6, we'll take a final pregame look at the 1982 Liberty Bowl. Reporting from Memphis, Tennessee in the Liberty Bowl, Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports.
The Blue Ribbon Committee, composed of 22 former state senators, today unveiled the recommendations they've been working on for the past 3 months. Among them, big changes in the way state budgets are set. The committee recommends what amounts to a form of budget isolation. If the Senate has not approved a budget within the first 21 working days of the general legislative session, then the committee suggests budget approval become the only order of business until it is completed. The committee also recommends a return to biennial budgeting in the state, meaning the legislature would consider 2-year budgets every even-numbered year.
If these rules changes do what they look like they did just in my few minutes of looking over them and in my conversation with the chairman, if they do what I think they will, and the Senate does vote them into effect, I don't think we'll ever again have a situation that the legislature goes home and adjourns without passing a budget for the state to operate on or the schools to operate on. I think if these rule changes are put into effect, that'll never happen again.
Of course, the biennial budget measure would have to be handled the same way in the House of Representatives if it is to work.
I am planning within a few days after I read this to make copies of this report and get them sent to each House member, and then be in contact with people that of course look like they'll be leaders in the House.
Mr. Baxley says he hopes this won't make people think that everything will run smoothly in the Senate from now on. He says he doubts that will ever happen. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News. The Blue Ribbon Committee focused special attention on how the state budgeting process can best be handled. Among the suggestions, a return to biennial budgeting, that is, legislative consideration of 2-year budgets every even-numbered year, and a form of budget isolation. If a budget is not approved after 21 working days in the regular session, the committee would like to see the Senate put aside all other business until a budget is approved.
We spend, count all our funds together, well over $1 billion, nearly $2 billion, I think, every year in this state. And the way that budget has been handled all too often in the past is it's voted on in the last hours of the last night of the last day of the session. And very few, if any, of the 35 senators or the 105 House members really know what's in there.
Biennial budgeting would require similar rules in the House of Representatives. Mr. Baxley says he'll look for support in the House for any such measures he decides to push. The Blue Ribbon Group also offered recommendations about Senate committees, specifically suggesting that several of the committees be divided into subcommittees, a move the chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee says could mean a better informed legislature.
Oh, I think the dividing the major committees into subcommittees probably could result in more efficiency, cohesion in action than anything else.
Within about 5 days, Mr. Baxley hopes to start talking with the 35 new senators, trying to come up with a consensus on which, if any, of the committee's recommendations they'll support. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Somebody in the press might have thought that it was something that I wanted to push. It was a program of my own, which is not. Committee. There's not one darn thing I could have told them to do they would have done anyway.
I've had the privilege of chairing this.
I'm a Senate. In a democracy, you're never going to have a smooth running legislative body. If you ever do,
Judge Sample's wife has filed a petition, and I have signed an order putting him on probation. The conditions of probation are that he have fun, hunt, fish, and come to the courthouse at least one time a week.
I'll obey this. Sheriff will come get me if I don't.
Did I forget to do that? 30 minutes, D. I just don't sound like good. Well, no wonder you said.
Good job, moment.
Well, the unfinished business is fully complying with Judge Johnson's original court orders of 1976. I feel like that we are very close to that compliance at this time, but we may not be in total compliance. And we're so close that I feel like you're playing football and you're driving for the winning touchdown, in the closing minutes of the game you get to the opponent's 1 yard line punt. We're that close, and I would really have liked to have seen it through until total compliance is achieved.
Of the team
Bear Bryant, the winningest coach in college football history, coached Alabama for the final time tonight. First quarter, Crimson Tide and White. Quarterback Walter Lewis drops back, finds Joey Jones open downfield. The long pass to Jones, 50-yard gain down to the Illinois 26-yard line. A few plays later, the handoff goes to Ricky Moore. He goes 4 yards for the score. Alabama led 7-0. There were 9 turnovers in the first half alone. Second quarter, Illinois quarterback Tony Eason throws over the middle to Dwight Beverly. He's smashed by Jeremiah Castile. Alabama recovers to end the scoring threat. Later in the second quarter, Illinois gets the ball back when Dennis Bishop steps in front of a Walter Lewis pass. Bishop returns the ball to the Alabama 16-yard line. And with 1 minute and 3 seconds left in the first half, Joe Curtis gets the call. He goes up top, gets knocked back, but the officials ruled touchdown. Extra point was missed. Alabama led 7-6 at halftime. In the third quarter, Alabama quarterback Walter Lewis, the reverse to Jesse Bendros. He goes in 8 yards from the left side. The Crimson Tide led 14-6 midway through the third quarter. I'm Michael Stone for NBC News.
In less than an hour from now, Liberty Bowl Stadium here in Memphis will be packed beyond capacity. Over 50,000 plus millions more on nationwide TV will witness college football history as Alabama coach Bear Bryant ends his 38-year coaching career against the University of Illinois. All week here in Memphis, we've had a chance to hear from those on both sides of the ball about how they felt about playing in this game. We begin with the man himself.
I well remember the first Liberty Bowl game we played in Philadelphia. Played Penn State and lost. It was one of the few games I've ever played in that not played. I wasn't playing, of course. At the half, we went in and had a big pot-bellied stove, and I remember that real well. Everybody was so cold. The second half, I asked for volunteers to start.
The reason I feel so honored is that an opportunity like this to be with him, an opportunity to shake his hand after the game, no matter what the outcome is, and to be close to history.
I know we all want to go out on a winning note, and so there's a lot of emotion, and I think it's just as important or more important than any game we've ever played.
This is his last game, and he referred to, him as being one of the seniors this year, and he just want to go out in style, and so do we.
Obviously, since a legend like Coach Brown retires, it's made a big impact on the game, and it'd be very important and very advantageous for Illinois to play well. So, we're taking that kind of attitude, but we're still going in. We're just going to go in and have a good time and let it all hang out.
So the stage is set for another one of those unforgettable football games. We'll recap it for you and talk with those involved tomorrow night. Reporting from the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, Tennessee, Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports.